Welcome to today's episode brought to you by Avid AI Solutions by Gemma. We help businesses implement practical AI systems that remove bottlenecks, increase speed, and unlock scale without overwhelming teams or needing heavy technical setups. If you want to explore AI properly, just DM us the word AI and we're happy to explore a free consultation for you. Today, we have a very special guest, someone with deep experience in venture capital and private equity, Mark Coleman from Tambora Ventures. He's worked with founders across industries, guided companies through scale, restructuring, acquisitions. The list goes on, to be honest. Mark, really glad to have you here. Would you like to kick us off with your story and how this whole journey into investing started?
Amir, first and foremost, I love your passion. I love your understanding of what we're going to dive into today. But thank you. Thank you for the invite.
Sure,
It's my pleasure to share my story today. Being very humble and modest here, I will try to stay as high level as I can. But thank
for
you.
sure.
I'll stay focused if I can on the topic today, which is around the VC world and investment and the
Mhm.
finance that goes around there too. But I can give you a little bit about my DNA, a little bit of the anomaly.
Absolutely.
So my career is no different than yours or my portfolios and my cohorts. I'm really an entrepreneur by trade. And I've been blessed with a few different exits. The last one, our company, we sold DoubleClick to Google and spent about several years there. It's senior leadership. I had an unbelievable great time. Wouldn't trade it in for anything. But here it is,
Mm,
6, 7 years later, I broke away and decided if there will be life after Google. But I'm in a different chapter of my journey. I decided, let me see what I could do to give back to the community that really supported my career. And I supported
wow.
innovation. I opened up a venture fund, very boutique. But I go into a little bit
Mhm.
different. The sector appears to be a little broken, to say the least. And so I went in there and really did a due diligence of what's to enable my innovation to be supported by funding. So I go
Mm,
in a little bit different. I don't charge a management fee to my LPs. I go in there and we really go in at an early stage from C to A. And I'm more of an operator by trade that we try to do. I'm on my third fund. We're about to open up our fourth fund. We support
wow.
innovation around EI. You mentioned, Amir, about AI. I talk about EI, emotional intelligence, empathy intelligence. I come
Okay.
from the world of brands where I really firmly believe unless the consumer is laughing or crying, emotionally, they're not making
Hmm.
that decision of passion. So I can go over my portfolios of what I do, but I'd rather stay at a high level with you today, Amir, and talk to you about how the
Sure.
companies are using AI, how they're addressing funding, and how they're addressing their go-to-market strategy. But I want to follow your lead, my friend. Thank you again for the invite.
Absolutely. I can't wait to get started. And for people listening who might not fully understand what a venture firm actually does behind the scenes, how would you describe Tambora Ventures in really simple terms?
Uh, so it's really a marketing company at the end of the day. I put everything under umbrellas, buckets, but it's really a marketing umbrella.
Hmm.
Funding, supporting, investing, operation, marketing, sales. I can go on about every discipline that goes on to make a successful business. But the investment part is really just to learn and how to partner and see the vision of the founders and the
Mm,
team. And look, in my world, I invest in founders, not investors. I listen to their vision. It's not about revenue. For me, it's about proof of concept and validation. So once we validate what we're trying to do in the marketplace, I call it shampoo. We go in and rinse and repeat every day, and then we challenge a different sector. But the reason I'm bringing it up with you today, Amir, is that the sector seems to be a little broken. My founders seem to really
yeah.
focus on being a banker, not being builders. So I try to give them the focus of being the builder today for the passion. They didn't go into this industry innovation and to look for a disruptor sector just to be a banker to raise
Hmm.
money. It's a different time today. Investors come in to make sure that we control their go-to-market strategy, that we focus in on their burn and churn, as well as we follow their revenue in terms of their projections where they want to. So we really
Sure.
try to stay aligned. But I'm going to follow your lead again on other
Wow.
questions because I could go on to every other tangent from this from you.
And we will, don't worry about that. It's really interesting stuff you shared there. I'm super curious. So, how do you even come across great companies? Like from the outside, it almost feels like magic. What does deal flow really look like in your
I
world?
love the question, Amir. So at the end of the day, I'm only as good as the assets that I'm able to see. So in my world, I kiss a lot of frogs. I'm a DNA. I'm a
Hmm.
little old school. It's all about relationships and really scratch, sniff, and
Yeah,
smell.
for sure.
Even during the pandemic, I had to physically meet somebody in order to make a commitment. But once we meet, we don't have to be attached at the hip at that point. We really have confidence. We're all grown up in terms of what we need to do. But my visibility is really with accelerators. I sit on many boards in accelerator level. An accelerator level, it's an investment that comes in before they sometimes validated the proof of concept. Sometimes they're just so in the early part of it, but I surround myself around
Hmm.
the visibility to help accelerators make their final cut for cohorts. And I do that selfishly because they bring me in at the very end when it's down to maybe about 100 cohorts per year. So I get to
Hmm.
meet a lot of good companies that have already been qualified already. Plus, the other side is I meet a lot of
Sure.
board members, investors, a lot of brands, a lot of logos, like I talk about. And so I get to meet my network gets to expand when I get to meet the other companies. I'm pretty much agnostic. I stay in pretty much from distress and health and wellness. My sweet spot is digital. And I work with the ad agencies, the holding companies, the brands, the marketers, but I'm an operator. In my world, I seem to fill up the car with gas, but I don't want to own the car at the end of the day.
That's really, you mentioned something, you mentioned some really important points there, Mark. One thing I want to dive deep into is that relationship you have with founders that you work with. How important is it to have that relationship?
Love again, Mir. We're brothers from another mother, my friend. So, look, it really comes down to relationships. I
For sure.
often talk about my family. I've been blessed, married to my best friend for over 45 years. I have three kids all grown up. My kids are having kids. And just today, we're expecting our ninth grandchild. And I say that as if I just met my
Wow.
wife yesterday. So I appreciate life. I value my family and the values that come with that. If there was a line in the sand, you wouldn't even know between my work and my life. I treat my founders like family. We're very transparent. We have offsites all the time. I introduce them to my entire network. I'm not a broker. I don't monetize about 99% when I do. If my wife was here, she'd probably kick
Mhm.
me under the table. But it was an interesting dynamics. There are many check boxes that we look for, and I don't mean just from the FOMO world. Once we make that commitment, it's a partnership. It's really, I don't
Mm,
invest in investors. I invest in founders, and I follow their vision, and we follow their KPI, their roadmap, their go to market, and then we evaluate it. We fund it. We say, look, it's been 90 days. Did we get what you needed to do for those 90 days, meaning a KPI, what you needed to do? If we accomplished it, let's do more. Or if we didn't, what were the learnings from it? Because I talk about W's and L's, not wins and losses, but wins and learnings. So if we can
yeah.
get an understanding of what we did and how to correct it early enough, it's a win-win for everybody. And then the founders themselves,
Yeah.
my world is really, I leave every board meeting, I say the same thing, take me to task, don't underutilize me. And I approach that with the other board members as well. Our role in these companies is really to expedite their go to market strategy as quick as we can and strategically as we can. So it's not about revenue, for me at least in the beginning. But once we adopt it and revenue, there is a process here, then it's a full court press.
Wow. That is really fascinating. I love the concept you have of the wins and learning instead of wins and losses. I
Well,
love that.
sure.
I've never heard that one before. I've never heard that one. Now when we look at the broader scale of things, the industry as a whole. Now, Mark, you're close to a lot of founders in the early stage, right? What shifts are you seeing right now in the tech and AI space that are real, not just
Yeah,
hype?
so
We see a lot of hype.
yes, you're right. There are the few companies that are actually building an AI solution to sell. That's a work in progress. Not many companies are doing what the top five or six are trying to produce with major investments.
Hmm.
But we're going to let the dust settle a little bit there. But the companies that I'm
Sure.
involved in, I direct them to use AI to scale and expedite their go-to-market strategy and make things more, just much easier to work with in terms of the team and the tech and the marketing end of it too. Look, at the end of the day, AI at this early stage is almost like a mini me. meaning had an agent AI that helps, but it takes a lot of pressure. I've tasked
For sure.
all of my founders to learn AI at certain levels, and I sent them links to take these courses about AI. Again,
Hmm.
all my portfolios use AI to help their go-to-market strategy. I have only two companies that are actually building an AI solution to sell, which is good, but there's just no demand for it yet. It's almost, not to date myself, but it's almost the days of, there's gold in them hills, people just getting a land grab.
Yeah.
They're throwing the flags in the ground and trying to figure it out. If the people with deep pockets that they can, and a lot of the logos and brands. And to go back with AI, so I try to bring in a customer, a partner with my portfolio out of the gate to build their solution. I don't believe in
Hmm.
hoping and praying and guessing. I save that for church and synagogue. But it's really, it's
Yeah.
for strategically, if I could bring in, a market or a brand to help them build it out, be it white label or whatever. But at least we have the learning from the product and the service or the feature, and there's no guesswork. And as long as we can be agnostic with it, meaning that we could take it to market and commercialize, I'm okay with that. But I try to
Wow.
bring in strategically the right partners. Like I don't believe in selling at gunpoint. I believe in a partnership when there's
Yeah, for
so
sure.
I'm trying to get that, not to have my founders second guess the market, but to be more strategic in
Hmm.
terms of demand and if there's a void and where it's broken.
Do you think these founders are adapting fast enough, especially in such a rapid market that we are in 2025?
Well, yes, I do think they're working very quick. They're just under a lot of pressure. Prior pandemic days, it was always about raising money, and we didn't even care about the burn and
Hmm.
churn. Money was free; there was no interest rate on it. Back a few years ago,
Hmm.
but it's a different world today. A lot of valuations are just out of whack, and we're just trying to bring the burn and churn down. And we're just trying to be more operational in terms of following their KPI of what needs to be done. But I'm a little bit of the
Yeah.
anomaly. I'm very passionate what I do. Every company I get involved with, if I'm not on the board, I insist that there's a board observer that I have a relationship with. Because look, founders, they're always selling. And then credibility, is who do you really get the truth? I mean, of the trusted network
Yeah.
there. So it's a lot of relationship. Like family. We know when our kids are lying, right? We could look at them in the eye. We know.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. Same thing.
Absolutely. Mark, you said something really important there, which I'd like to touch on. You said you're really passionate. Now, where does that passion come from? I mean, you've been in the industry for years upon years upon years. How do you still get up in the morning and still have that same passion firing away?
When when you're blessed with certain things in life and you can actually see it, it's a whole different world there. So I've been blessed with
Mm,
my wife's parents. My parents, may they rest in peace, but my wife's parents are first generation Holocaust survivors. And I only bring that up only because they
wow.
taught me about sacrifice and tradition and real family values. I got married at young 20s.
Mm,
And I say that in a humble way, but I treat every day like it's family. I value every day. I don't take anything for granted. And, every day is a blessing.
for sure.
No, I don't mean to take that direction, but the ones who don't get it, I don't get involved in. So
Yes,
I have the
absolutely.
luxury, humbly, life's about choice if we can eventually. But I don't mean anything about
Mm,
money, about our network, our relationships, what we want to do every day. So I'm very select about my time and the people I surround myself with. Look,
that's
if I'm the
a
smartest one in the room, trust me, I look for another room. So I try to really multiply as much as I can out of a productive day.
wow. That's a really amazing philosophy to live by, and I double down on you on that. I try to live by that
Amen.
myself.
Amen.
That's
Good.
very, very fascinating for sure. Now, when we look into the founders that you work with, of course, what do founders tend to trip over the most when they're trying to scale, trying to raise, or trying to just increase the
Yeah,
business?
I think sometimes it's just being real. They get, like, I'm not a PowerPoint guy or a spreadsheet to win business. I believe everything
Mm,
it's a storytelling and a conversation, and it's about looking
for
someone in
sure.
the eye and being real. And I think sometimes the founders
Mm.
are challenged so much. They're always, walking on eggshells. They're making any
Where do we feel like that pressure actually comes from
because
though?
when people invest. there's obligation, there's a commitment. I'm not saying they're at the PE
Mm,
firm or the VC or the family office yet level yet, but it's they get hooked up to an IV. I mean, they're accountable. But it's almost like AI. AI is trained to get the job done. It's also can lie to
yeah.
us as well because it has to get the job done. AI and founders are no different. They have to get the job done. The trick is, as an investor, to see if they're lying about it or not. So, they're always on. They're always on. So I just happen to have a little secret power of just breaking that down a little bit, and then once I feel comfortable, then it's buckle up on the roller coaster. It's just an awesome ride. But
Mm.
until then, yeah.
That's really interesting. I like that. I like that secret power you have. Now, on that same topic,
We all have secret
Mark,
powers. We
I'm
just
gonna
don't know
ask
what they
you.
are.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask you a really random question. Have you watched Harry Potter by any
Say it again.
chance?
I'm sorry, Amir.
Have you watched Harry Potter by any chance?
The kids. I'm not a big Harry Potter fan, so I just one of those things.
But you're
Of
aware of
course,
what it is,
of
right?
course.
Yeah. If you were in the UK and you said the
I know,
answer,
I
you'd
know.
get crucified. I'm not gonna lie. But I'll give you the benefit of the doubt because you're overseas, right? But anyway, what I'm trying to
Yeah.
get at is, let's say we had a magic wand right here, right now, and I ask this to every single business that I get on the call with, and they give me some really interesting answers. So let's say we had a magic wand and you were able to wave it at anything you wanted, whether that's personal life, business life. What would you wave it at, and what would the impact be?
So I'm going to give an answer that's a little bit out there, if I can. I think the
Go
world
for it,
is
for sure.
divided between the haves and the have-nots, and I think that river is just
Hmm.
widening every day. And if I had that magic wand, I'd bring equality right up there, uh, right up there. um, period. So the problem that I
Absolutely.
have, I think it's ego for that
Mm,
that high percent that don't have it, but it's the ego of that 1% that have it that really slow down the other 99% that really can get it done.
yeah.
But so it's really just leveling the playing field. And I could talk. I promote women's group. I mean, promote all around the board. But I'm trying to get
Hmm.
equal voices on these companies so we can actually hear reality of what's going on in the workplace or the consumer.
Wow.
Because right now we have the board members and investors seems to be driving a lot of the go to market. And again, I don't invest in investors. I invest in founders for their vision. But what
Mhm.
happens when the big money comes in, things change a little bit, to say the least.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. For sure. That's a really amazing answer you've given there. And it's quite unique, if I'm being completely honest. I don't think anyone has ever gone down that route of things, which really shows the uniqueness of yourself,
Oh,
Mark.
man.
Um, Now, Mark, I'm going to ask you the same question again, but for your business, what would you say you'd wave it at in terms of for your specific business?
Like anything, I think we put too much for one customer, and depend on the business and the success of that. Look, I try
Mm,
to tell my founders to walk and chew gum, not to put all the eggs in one basket, and then move on from it. But, allocate certain teams to it. But what happens with the founders? They become, since they're so territorial and type A, they always want to have the tier one customers to work with, but
mm,
they have to let go. They have to have confidence in their C-suite team and the people they hire. Otherwise, it's too much duplication. The example I talk about is if I was throwing a party and everybody bought the paper plates, it'd be a shitty party because no one bought the cup for the ice. So
yeah.
it's really about divide and conquer among these group teams and allocating everyone's capabilities to the best.
Wow. That's a really amazing answer, that Mark. I love that answer. Now, let's look into the future. When we look 6 to 12 months ahead, what would you say the biggest opportunity is in your business? What would you like it to be?
I just got involved in the distressed market. And distress isn't when a company isn't good. Distress is for the consumer when they're in different sectors that's just not working out. Be it education, be it insurance, be it fire, be it
Hmm.
finance. But there's a lot of distressed people and companies that I would like people not to give up on. I always say don't throw the baby out with the
Sure.
bathwater, but sometimes people, the founders, they don't know how to let go of their original thought. Here the example I'll give, when Amazon started, they were a bookstore, go find a book in any
Oh,
Amazon store
wow.
today. So they, I never worry about where they start because the market's going to dictate their go-to-market strategy anyway. So you got to be
Hmm.
open-minded and be able to be resilient and no ego.
Yes.
So that's, you just gotta, you can't just dig your heels in and at gunpoint make the end user, purchase or use their products or service or etc.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure, for sure. And I'm really curious, 6 to 12 months time, do we feel like we'll implement AI a lot more within our business or within the industry as a whole?
A lot more. A lot more.
You
Yeah, yeah,
think?
yeah. Of course. Oh, there's a
What makes you say that?
they're all everyone. Look, the universities and colleges are taking a different direction today on their programming. The big,
Hmm.
the 7 companies they're offering free AI to all the college and high school kids today. They understand that as a country that we have to adopt AI. So the example being in every time of period in our lifetime, there's always something that goes on. The agricultural world, when they invented tractors, all the farmers are freaking out. They're going to be out of a
Mm,
job. But all it meant was that the farmers can do something else and the tractors can take some of the physical work away.
yeah.
So that's the AI mentality. It's just taking some of the heavy lift away. And eventually, just where I'm going with it is that eventually all of us will have to report to AI before we press the send or submit button.
Mm,
Because humans hallucinate, and the trick with AI is black and white, zeros and ones. So we're
yeah.
trying to get there. It's early yet.
Do we feel like that's a good thing or a bad thing though? Because obviously there's positives and negatives
Look,
both.
I think it's a great thing. I think it's a great thing. I think
Okay.
anytime that we're neutral and we're living life through our rearview mirror, it's a bad thing. So I think we always got to be thinking about the next generation. To hand the baton to, and it has nothing to do
Hmm.
about the countries and owning the best technology or China or Russia. It's meaningless to me. I globally I help every continent um, based on initiatives, but
Wow,
based upon the founders themselves, they really just have to get their go to market and hone in a little bit more.
for sure, absolutely. What a great conversation we've had, Mark. Before we wrap up the podcast, what's one thing you wish more founders or operators understood earlier in their journey?
I there's not much more they can do because people only know what they know until they know it. And I think it's an on-the-job training.
Mm,
Founders, they have this idea, they come with this brainstorm, but the hard part is implementing and executing. I mean, the easy part is the idea, and even the easy part is fundraising. The hard part is the implement and
mm,
executing, but they think that's the easy part. So I'm always flipping it. Don't worry about the fundraising. We got that. Don't worry, we got
yeah.
that. Focus in. So it's really just circling back with the founders, though.
Amazing, amazing, Mark. Where can people find you? Website, LinkedIn? Drop
Sure, sure.
anything here
Oh, good.
right now.
Mark Coleman. I'm at LinkedIn at tamboraventures.com. You look for me, you'll find me.
For sure, for sure. I mean, we did,
There we
right?
go.
Mark, what an amazing conversation. This has been brilliant. Genuinely appreciate the insight. Yeah, we dug quite deep there. Any last words?
No, but it's interesting. The reason we're on the call is that I like to eat my own dog food. So I usually take my founders to task. I tell them to live outside their comfort
Hmm.
zone. Every now and then take an outbound call. You make an outbound call. Meet someone new for the first time. But
Yeah,
challenge yourself. I do that myself. I get inbound people I don't meet, but I want
for
to help
sure.
them in any way that I can. So Amir, this is the reason we're on. I heard from you. I connected the dots and I took a leap of faith, and I couldn't be any happier. But thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. And we really appreciate your time here today. Yeah, that is a wrap of the podcast. Thank you guys for listening and check us
Thank
out.
you, everybody.
I'll just stop recording.